Welcome back, adventurers. So for today, our Day 0 build covers Lady Kima of Ford, a 5 hand size, 36 health character with the champion trait, Fire, Life, and Order symbols, and a couple of really interesting abilities. As a first form, which means the first thing that we want to do between drawing our hand and playing our first card, the first thing we want to do is we add one attack card from our discard pile to our card pool. Our checks to play cards get +1 this turn. So you might think it's a little weird to do that, but bear with me. As an enhance, our non-throw attack gets +X damage. X equals half of the printed difficulty of the preceding attack in your card pool, rounded up. So what does Lady Kima want to do? She obviously wants to put a very strong attack in from our discard pile to our card pool, so our first attack gets a big power bonus. However, she also kind of just wants to play big attacks so she can keep generating a string of large, damaging moves. But there are also some abilities that we can get use of with this ability. So let's move on to our attacks. First up is Spirit Weapon Whirl, a 5/3, 5 high for 5 with a 2 mid block, charge, spell, and weapon. As a blitz, if we have a spell or weapon card attack, in our discard pile, we get to clear any other attack from our card pool and add one attack from our discard pile to our card pool in any position. So how does this card work? Basically, if we build in a big attack with Kima and play a second attack, that attack's going to get a lot of damage. If we play Spirit Weapon Whirl, it might not get as much damage, but we can clear that big attack from our card pool and then put it right behind Spirit Weapon Whirl from our discard pile in order to get that big bonus. So this allows us to basically arrange our card pool how we want to in order to gain the most out of our attack card's difficulties and any other card pool effects that we'd want. So this is kind of a bread and butter type of attack for Lady Kima. And one of those big attacks we want to put into our card pool, Fathom Blade Binding. You'll recognize this from the Ford Day 0 build that we made. This is a 7/3, 5 high for 7, and a 0 mid block. It has Stun 2, Spell, and Weapon, so it activates the Spirit Weapon Whirl. As a Stun 2, it means we can force our rival, as an enhanced ability, to commit 2 foundations. As a static, while this card is in our card pool, all block modifiers get +1, meaning when we use Lady Kima to put Fathom Blade Binding into our card pool at the start of the turn, all of our rivals' block modifiers get +1. And our checks to play cards get +1, so effectively, Fathom Blade is not counting towards progressive difficulty, technically. And because this is a 7 difficulty attack, the first attack we play, or any attack that is immediately preceded by Fathom Blade, is going to get +4 damage, because it's half rounded up. And as a champion blitz, we are a champion. As a champion blitz, if we took damage last turn, this attack gets +3 speed. So if we wanted to play this as an attack, because we are getting +1 to our checks, we can make this an 8 high 7 while making our rivals' block modifiers much more difficult. Imagine putting one of these in your card pool with Lady Kima, and then playing one as an attack. Sure, you're playing it on an 8, but you get +1 to your checks, so it's effectively like checking a 5 on a 7, checking a 6 on an 8, same math. So you could become an 8 high for 11 with Stun 2 as your first attack. That's incredible. Next we have Resilient Charge, another 7 difficulty attack with a 3 control. It's a 5 mid for 8 with a 1 mid block. It has Stun 1, Charge, and Slam. As a static, if our character is a champion, this attack gets -1 difficulty and -1 to its block modifier. Now, why does this matter? One, it makes it easier to play, makes it a 6 difficulty, but also, Lady Kima says printed difficulty. So we could reduce the difficulty of our attacks, and they will still count for their printed difficulty when using Kima's ability, which is really powerful. As a response in our card pool, which is why card pool is in brackets, which means the only time you can play this response is if Resilient Charge is in your card pool already. After the speed of your attack is reduced by a rival effect, that attack gets +1 speed. Simple. And as another card pool response, we can flip this card. After an attack deals damage, draw 1 card. So you'd want to use this like if your last attack you're planning to play deals damage, you can flip this card. There one other attack, yes. Or if it was the first card in your card pool, then you can flip it. It's no longer the preceding attack, so you don't really have to worry about its difficulty, but it's a 5 mid 8 with stun 1 that can give speed to all of your attacks if your rival tries to reduce the speed of your attacks, which is pretty good. Next up, teaming with the Attack Titan. This is an 8 difficulty move-ish, asterisk there. 3 control, 5 mid for 5 with a 1 low block, Fury, Titan, and Weapon. As a static, it gets -2 difficulty for each attack in our card pool to a minimum of 1. So if we stack in, Fathom Blade Binding and then play Resilient Charge. So we build this in with Lady Kima, we play Resilient Charge on a 7. Our checks get +1. This gets -4 difficulty, so it becomes a 4 difficulty move. But because it's a printed 8 difficulty move, you can still use Lady Kima's ability to give your next attack +4 damage. And if we have, as a blitz, if we have 20 or more cards in our discard pile, we may change this attack zone. It's good for trying to catch your opponent off guard with some zone mix-up, but it's mainly here to take some huge damage boosts from Lady Kima while lowering its own difficulty, making itself easier to play, and then giving more dangerous boosts later. We have Heavy Hammer Thump, a 6 difficulty, 3 control, 5 mid for 8, again, with a 2 mid block, Slam and Weapon as its keywords. I think everything has Weapon, doesn't it? Oh, that has Slam. As a blitz, we get to draw 1 card, which is nice for a 5-hander, but then we get to add 1 card from our hand to the top of our deck. So we can stack our best check on top of our deck while also getting +1 to that check the next time we play a card. So that's really, really good. If we can put a 6 on top of our deck with the +1 from Lady Kima, that's a 7. So guaranteeing a very solid check right there. So just a very good flow card for her. And lastly, Incapacitating Strike. This is a 4 difficulty, 3 control, 3 mid for 5 with a 2 mid block, charge, and weapon. As a blitz, if we have 3 or more attacks in our card pool, we get to draw 1 card. We like drawing cards as a 5-hander. And then blitz, if our rival has 8 or more foundations, we get to draw a card. So a 4 difficulty move that obviously probably isn't going to be doing much, but can wear +4 damage really nicely, becoming a 3 mid 9. At the end of a string that can draw you 2 cards, that's pretty solid. So that's our attack lineup. We want to play these big difficulty attacks to give us a lot of scaling damage in a small string. We're not going to be playing 4 or 5 attacks in a turn, but we are going to be playing maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 if we're lucky. We are putting 1 immediately in with Kima from the discard pile, so that doesn't count towards our hand cost. But we want to play these big damage attacks so that the next attack will get a big damage bonus. She wants to be thinking... Excuse me. Ugh. I work way too hard on these sometimes. She wants to always be thinking of her next move ahead. So she always wants you to think 1 move ahead. On to our non-attack cards, we have Idun Box, a 2 difficulty, 5 control, 2 low block. The unique keyword, you can only have 1 in your stage at a time. As an enhance, you can commit this card, return this attack to its printed speed, printed damage, printed zone, and if it was unblockable, it is no longer unblockable. You just hard reset your rival's strongest attack back to its printed stats, and as a 5-hander, you can usually just take that hit and not worry about it because you have 36 health. Next we have Showdown as an action card, a 3/4 with a 3 high block. As a response, after we block with this card, we commit 2 rival foundations. So we want our rival to be going into our turn with as few resources as possible. So we use Showdown to block. We have cards that give us stun, and cards that increase our rival's block modifiers or increase our speed. We want to be pushing these really heavy damage attacks through. So being able to commit on our rival's turn defensively is really good. And then as a response, we can commit 2 foundations after our rival plays an ability on an action card, we get to cancel it. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of interesting plays with action cards coming out this set, so being able to cancel an action at any given point is really good. And now we move on to Kima's foundational support. We have Rising Visage, a 1/5 with a 3 high block, Enhance Flip, mill 3, so you discard the top 3 cards of your deck. Your rival spends 1 momentum. So this not only gives us a bit of momentum control against our rival, it puts cards in our discard pile. Because we want to get some of these, like Fathom Blade Binding, Resilient Charge, we want to get these into the discard pile so that we can put them into our card pool at the start of our turn for free. So having a little bit of mill is really handy. Next we have Everlight's Grace, a 2/4 with a 2 high block. As a response, we commit this card. After we take damage from an unblocked attack, we mill 2 cards. We add one of those milled cards to our hand. So this is a good way if we've run out of cards to block with. We take a hit, we pick up a card to block with out of the 2 cards that we milled, and hey, maybe we get an attack that we want to put in our discard pile. Strong Windup is a really good card for Kima. It's a 3/5 with a 3 low block, deflect 1, so as a response in our hand, we may add this card to our card pool after the block step of our rival's attack to give that attack -1 damage. I don't see that being very useful, but the response on it, we can remove it from our stage. After we make a check to play a card with a printed difficulty of 6 or greater, that check gets +3. So Kima is already giving us +1 to our checks. And then this can give +3 to a single check. So imagine you have your Fathom Blade Binding already in the card pool. You play Resilient Charge. Your check's this is going to be on a 7, because your character's a champion, so you get -1. If you check a 3, that's like the worst thing you can do. Well, that 3 gets +1 because of Kima, so it's a 4. And then you remove Strong Windup to give it +3. There's your 7. From 1 foundation card, just giving up 1 foundation automatically passes, so you don't have to commit 3 or 4. And notice it also says a printed difficulty of 6 or greater. So if you have a card that you've reduced the difficulty of, like say you're teaming with the Attack Titan, you can do that. Resilient Charge, you can do that. If somehow you've reduced the difficulty of Fathom Blade, you can still remove it because it is the printed difficulty that matters. And maybe you'll see that in my more advanced Kima list that I'm working up. Next up, Daring Swordplay, a 2/5 with a 2 low block. It's got Breaker 1, which means if we successfully block with this card, our rival's next check will get -1. It's a very powerful defensive ability. But as an enhance, we commit this card, our attack gets +2 speed. And if it's blocked, our next attack gets +1 speed. We want to push all of this big damage through as easy as possible. So stun and forcing a lot of speed onto our attacks is going to really make sure a lot of this damage sticks. Next up is Show of Strength, a 3/5 with a 3 mid block. As a response, we can commit this card. After we play an attack, it gets +3 damage. Not exactly lacking in the damage department, but it can make an early attack even more threatening, so that our rival has to block it and maybe commit more resources than they would otherwise be willing to commit, which opens up our next attack to be able to get through easier. And we have this champion response that is tenacious or playable while committed. We remove this card. After we pass a check against a difficulty of 7 or greater to play an attack, draw 1 card. So this doesn't mean printed difficulty. This means the check that you have to make has to be of 7 or greater. So if we, have 2 attacks in our card pool and play teaming with the attack titan, well, the difficulty there becomes a difficulty of 5. So we would not be able to use Show of Strength on that. So, important to know, not printed difficulty, the difficulty of the check. Excuse me. Next up we have Undeterred, a 1/5 with a 2 mid-block. It's got Champion Breaker 1, that breaker keyword again, making our rival's next check a little bit more difficult after we block, which means hopefully they'll spend more resources on their turn and have less to deal with our attacks on our turn. And as a response, after we block with this card, our rival's next attack gets -2 speed. So their next check gets a little more difficult, and their next attack gets slower. All around, good card. We have Defend the City, a 2/6 with a 1 high block. As a response that is tenacious, we flip this card. After it is, we commit any number of cards to our rival's effect, we build the top card of our deck face down. So this is good for 2 reasons. 1, as a 5-hander, we are usually slower to build than our rivals, which is why we have so much more health. We can take more hits until we get going. We're usually a slower deck, but also, this is a 6 check. We want as many 6 checks as we can get to make sure that we're passing a lot of these high difficulty moves. Next we have Capture the Target, a 1/5 with a 3 low block. As an enhance, once per turn, tenacious. If you have 3 or more attacks in your card pool, ready this foundation. So this is good for when we put an attack in with Kima, and then we play 2 attacks. Even if those are the only 2 attacks we're going to play, on that second attack, we can ready capture the targets so that they go into our rival's turn ready. It's more about setting up for the rival's turn than it is continuing our string. Because like I said, we're not exactly a big string deck. We're kind of a mid-range deck. We want to fight in that middle ground, survive the early game, but we don't want to go too long because we might just get outlasted, especially by higher hand size characters. But we want to put enough damage in and a lot of early pressure and really fight for that mid-game kind of deal. Next we have Repay a Debt. This is a 3/5 with a 2 low block. As a static, while this card is ready in our stage, all of our attacks with a printed difficulty of 5 or greater get +1 damage. That is every card except for Incapacitating Strike. So as long as this card is ready, we just get a static +1 damage to all of our attacks except Incapacitating Strike for each copy of Repay a Debt in play. And if our rival's trying to deal with our breaker and our speed, they may get pushed into deadlock, which means they'll have at least 11 foundations, which gives us access to this deadlock enhance. This attack is +2 speed. Free +2 speed for every copy of Repay a Debt, on top of free damage on most of our attacks. We want to push our rival into deadlock, and we want to have this card in our stage when we do, because this is where we can really start pushing through it, breaking down those walls. Next we have the Terrific Trio, a 1/5 with a 2 mid-block. As an enhance, we can remove this card if we have 3 or more attacks in our card pool. Our attack gets +2 speed and +2 damage. So again, on that third attack, which is technically our second attack, we're just pushing a little bit more speed and damage, and then we can try to build out from there. Next we have Thoughtful Classmate, a 2/5 with a 3 mid-block. As a response, we flip this card. At the start of our end phase, we get to add 1 mid-attack from our card pool to our hand. That would be Resilient Charge, Heavy Hammer Thump, and Incapacitating Strike. Oh, and Teaming with the Attack Titan. For some reason I looked at the block zone for that one. So what we could do is, if we have Resilient Charge that we put in with Lady Kima, we can pick this card up at the end of the turn, because we can block with it on our rival's turn, and then if they deal us damage, we can use this card pool flip after an attack deals damage, draw 1 card to draw defensively. So it's just a little bit of a cheeky, if we know our rival's playing a lot of low attacks, we can pick up Teaming with the Attack Titan. The other ones are mids, but mids are good. they can block anything. We just might take a little bit of damage if it's an off-zone attack. Next, Childlike Appearance, a 2/4 with a 2 high block. As an enhance, we destroy this card and spend 1 momentum. We reduce this attack speed to 0. If it is blocked, we selectively commit 1 Rival Foundation. So it's a great way to make use of our blocks and a bit of our momentum. As you saw, we didn't have any powerful or EX abilities in here. So this is a good, so far I think it's the only way to spend momentum. But we use this, we commit 1 Rival Foundation after we block, and it's usually going to be their best one. But you don't normally want to take too much momentum for Kima because you want to be putting attacks from your discard pile into your card pool anyway. Next we have Botan's Coaching, a 0/5 with a 3 mid block. As an enhance, we flip it, both players discard 1 card and draw 1 card. Simple cycle draw. A cheeky little ability here, Relaxed Demeanor, a 1/4 with a 3 low block. As an enhance during our turn, we may flip this card. We search our deck for any attack and add it to the discard pile. So if we have not checked a Fathom Blade Binding, but we, played an attack or something during our turn, we can just search our deck for Fathom Blade Binding and put it right in the discard pile so that we can put it into our card pool next turn. Kind of a fun little trick. Next we have Seasoned Brawler, a 1/5 with a 2 high block. As a response, we flip this card. After our rival blocks with an attack card, we get to draw 1 card. And this is a Tenacious ability, it's playable while committed. So a little bit of draw. Our rival's probably going to want to block with attacks because they have the better block modifiers. So if we can force that, we can probably draw a card out of it. And lastly, Sense of Justice, a 2/5 with a 2 high block. As an enhance, we commit this card and name any keyword. Our rival's attack gets -X speed or -X damage. X equals the number of attacks with that keyword in their card pool. So if our rival's running like all weapon attacks or all spell attacks, we can say, oh, you have 4 attacks in your card pool, all with the same keyword. That's -4 speed or -4 damage, whichever we want to do. If we want to completely block something, or if we just want to take a little less damage. It's a very efficient foundation defensively. And that is going to be the day 0 of Lady Kima of Ford. I will say that halfway through this build, I got some very interesting ideas for a more standardized competitive build, but they were a little outside of the normal realm for day 0 beginner-friendly deck ideas, so you may see Lady Kima making an appearance back on the channel a little bit later. But right now I'm going to try to get through the rest of these day 0 builds. As you can see, I'm a little exhausted, but c'est la vie. I work for you guys. I live to serve, as it were. So what do you think of the deck? What do you think of the character? I know a lot of people say, why play her when you can play Devil Jin? I think there are some more interesting ways that you can, or more interesting reasons that you could play her instead of Devil Jin. I definitely see the logic there of what people are trying to say, but I don't know. I like her. I like having the extra bulk of the 5-hander, and she can sort of play the same style. I mean, I like her. And she can play cards that he can't. So, that is what it is. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video and you liked the deck, please leave a like on the video and drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you are not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. So far, this Day 0 series is my most popular yet, and I'm loving having all the conversations with you guys in the comment sections. It really makes my day anytime I see it, I get a comment. So until then, I will see you in the next one. Safe travels.